Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are continuing our little upgrade mini-series, I guess we're going to call it, the channel's first mini-series. We're working on this beautiful white EVO 10 MR, and in the last episode you guys probably saw us rip apart all the stock intake stuff and the soft three-piece upper intercooler pipe and replace it with this K&N intake kit. This comes with the intake hardline made out of aluminum, which is retrofitted with threaded fittings to hook up some different nipples for vacuum lines in the back. It comes with a filter, comes with this new air box that mounts to the stock one, and you can actually see it shoots straight through from the hood. When the hood is closed, there's actually a little bump right here in the hood, and this will actually direct cold air from the front of the car in through that scoop and into the cold air intake there. And it also replaces that floppy upper intercooler pipe, like I just said, with this nice stout aluminum wrinkle red pipe. It wasn't too hard to put on. Again, my kit and the last one didn't come with any instructions, which was kind of frustrating, but pretty simple to figure out if you've ever messed with one of these. If you guys want to take a look at that, I'll put the link in the bottom, or you can just go back to the last video of the channel. Anyways, today we are going to continue this project with the next part of it, which would be upgrading these brakes. Well, not even really upgrading, but changing out these brakes and rotors. These pads are shot and these rotors are shot. Now these are the gyro disc two-piece rotors that come with this vehicle. We're going to be disassembling this, pulling the pads out of the BREMBOs, which is a little different than your standard brakes. If you haven't done them before, it's a little bit of a learning curve. You're going to need to get a small punch, socket set, and some brake grease, little penetrant, little brake parts cleaner, and then your parts. So why don't I grab the parts and I'll show you guys what we're going to swap out with. Okay, so aside from those struts, which are going to get replaced here in the future with some nice coilovers, back to the brakes. Down here we've got our nice drilled and slotted rotors, and these puppies are very heavy. We just got these things in. Here is the part number right here for the front rotor. I believe, or no, that's the rear rotor. And this is the part number for the front rotor here. And this kit comes with these. It's all four rotors. You get two front, two rear, and you get two boxes of brake pads. And these are the brake pads that we got here to replace the stock ones. Part number is right there on the box. This is some nice looking stuff. It's a good kit. It comes with replacement hardware for the front and rear brakes. This is for the front. This is the new springs and the new pins that hold our pads in. So we're going to start to replace all these by removing this front system. Like I said earlier, these are a little bit different than your standard brakes. So first thing you want to do is you want to come up here and you want to pull off your brake fluid reservoir cap. And we're just going to set this on a non-painted surface off to the side, make sure that nothing leaks out. And we're going to have to come down here and remove a couple of things. So first thing you're going to need is a small hammer and a punch, and these pins right here, there's a silver one here and a silver one here. These actually, you drive them straight back and out, and you pull them out the back side of the caliper, then the spring falls out. And then I use a small pry tool, a flathead screwdriver, to get in here and kind of pry against the old rotor to compress the 4-piston caliper against the pad. So I'll go in between the pad and the rotor and pry backwards, and the other side I'll pry forwards to do the inside pad. And that's going to open this up a little bit. And you can also notice that these EVOs don't have soft lines up here. They have a hard brake line. You guys can pull off the 12mm on the front side of the strut. It goes in this little hole here, and this whole thing just hangs on the front side. Then what we're going to do is go on the back of the caliper like you would any other brakes, and we're going to disassemble the back two nuts. Will come off. There's let me see if I can get you a shot of them. Yeah, there's one right here, and there's another down right here below that. So there's only 2 on the backside. I don't know, probably 17 or 18 mils, something like that. Once we get that done, we're going to swing this caliper off to the side so we can work on getting this rotor pulled off. So I'm going to start doing all that stuff. I'm going to stick you guys off to the side, and I'll show you what it looks like all pulled apart. Alright, so we got the caliper pulled off, and if you look right here, our rotor is nice and free too. If they do stick, I always keep an extra set of M8 by 125 bolts. I believe that's what the thread pitch is, and they just go in the little holes on the side of the rotor to press against the hub, and they'll pop right off. But we're hanging the caliper now, because these are all dirty. I'm going to clean them off, and you can actually see the pistons are compressed back in from prying against this old rotor. It did take a little chunk out of the old rotor, but we don't care about the old rotor. We're going to clean up that caliper a little bit, make it nice and shiny. We're going to pull this rotor off, clean the surface behind it, and to do some of that stuff, I like to use a wheel cleaning brush that I picked up. I was going to order a set off Amazon. I found them at AutoZone. There's a 3-piece kit. There's this brush, 2 small brushes, and a big brush that hook up to your drill, 1/4-inch drive. These work great for cleaning this stuff off. So I got some soapy water, some spray cleaner, and brake parts cleaner, and I'm going to start cleaning some of this stuff off, and then we're going to put our new rotor on. Alright, so now that we've got this caliper all put back together, we've got our new pads in, we've got our new brake rotor put on, which looks really nice on here. Everything's back together. We're going to get rid of these old rotors here. You can clearly see these things are done, and there's a huge lip right here. Yeah, these things are smoked. I'll see you guys again when we're at the rear of the car to do the back ones. Alright guys, we got our wheel put back on, and I'll tell you what, compared to what it was, these look fantastic. So, like I said, we're going to move on to the rears, and we're going to be doing kitty corner. I'm going to save this one for a little later. I actually have some more work I got to do on the passenger side in the front, but you guys are going to have to wait for the next one for that. So now we're going to work on taking off this rear wheel, getting this rear brake pulled out, and I'm going to show you guys how to change the rear ones. It's pretty much... Okay, so we got the rear pulled off, and as you guys can probably see, these rotors are in worse condition than the front ones. Sorry, we got some traffic driving by. But there are a few main differences between the fronts and the rears here. Number one is you'll notice calipers on a different orientation like I stated before, and it's a two-piston design, where there's a piston here and a piston on the other side, versus the other one where there's two on either side. So this one has the same two pins that you take out for the spring, so we're going to knock these out first, take that spring out. Once that's out, we're going to try to pry against the rotor so we can push the pad into the caliper, or into the piston rather, and it'll pinch the piston back in. We still have our reservoir off in the front, and before we move to the back, we pumped the brakes so that we didn't overflow that reservoir with fluid from having, you know, the front caliper pressed in and then the rear pressed in. That level would just keep rising until it spills over. So I pumped the brakes twice, made sure the pedal's nice and stiff. Those calipers up front have squoze back down on the pads against the rotors, and they're ready to be driven on. Now the other thing you're going to note is we don't have a hard line, we have a flex line back here. And also, the two bolts that take this off, there's one right here and there's one identical down below it. I don't know if you can see it. And my middle finger's tapping on it. There you go. You can kind of see it. And in order to get this caliper enough room to wiggle and move and get out of the way of the rotor, there's a 12mm bolt right there. And that's mounted to hold the e-brake line and the regular brake line right here. Also, make sure that you release your e-brake. If you don't have your emergency brake released, then it's going to be pinched on here. The size difference on here actually is not a 19 anymore. It's down to a 17 mil. The fronts are 19s, the rears are 17. So first things first, we're going to pop out these pins just like we did before. Spring, pads off. Then we're going to crack these bolts free, slide this out of the way, and we're going to try to get this rear rotor off. It looks pretty crusty, so hopefully this one comes off easy. If not, we do have our bolt that we can try to put in, but these holes don't look like they're ready to receive any bolts. They're kind of full of crap, so I might have to clean those out. But anyways, I'm going to stick you guys off the side and get started. We've got this thing all cleaned up. Went through and scrubbed everything out with some brushes. There's a little bit of surface rust in some of these parts still. I'm obviously not going to clean the brake shoes off, the parking brake shoes. These things have a little bit of life left on them. You always want to check these. I'm going to put some lube on all these springs and where the shoes meet on this top pin here and the bottom pin where the adjustment is. A little WD-40 or something on there and a little bit of grease to make sure that nothing seizes up on them and keep these things quiet. Cleaned up these calipers. They came out pretty good. Got a lot of the corrosion and crap that was on them off, a lot of the debris and brake dust. So now we're going to go ahead, actually you can see down here on the ground, this is all the little chunks of stuff that came off. There was quite a bit on there, but they're looking all right now. So I'm going to clean these off, lube them up, and we're going to start putting this all back together. So Alright guys, we've got the rears done. we put it back together. I'm going to go pump the brake pedal and make sure that the fluid's all back in those pistons, in those calipers. And now we're going to move on to this. But this project we're going to save for the next episode. So if you guys have enjoyed this little bit of EVO content we've been doing lately, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. And until the next one, guys, we're going to be wrenching on this EVO. Stay tuned. Take care. We'll see you right back here for another episode of today's project guide. Adios, folks.